So let's go through a few of these just to get started so you know everything you need to write down. Of course, you need the answer and you need the proof that the answer is right. So that's going to be algebra and then checking your work. So just to get started from the beginning, make sure you do double signs. If there are any, do that first. So actually go through, rewrite the problem. I know this is where some of you would say, but do I have to? It's kind of like asking, do I really have to try to get it right, or can I just write something down and hope it's right later? So yeah, you want to get it right. So take time to rewrite the problem, make it the two negatives a positive, and rewrite it. That way you're not confused on the next step whether you should add or subtract. And remember, in the end, this is just asking what number plus 4 equals 21. And you already know the answer is 17. 17 plus 4 is 21. So you can actually go down here and say, g equals 17, but then make sure you prove it. You want to make this 0, so positive 4 minus 4 is 0. And of course, you have to take off the same amount on both sides. When you cancel out, it means it equals 0. So as long as it equals 0, you can draw a line through it. You bring down exactly what you given up. You write it as b and then equal sign. Okay, and then you can get your answer. 21 minus 4 is 17. Okay. There's your proof. There's your algebra right there. Remember, that is what you need to show. That's a must in your algebra class. You're going to want to see how did you get that? What's the proof? And then, like you did yesterday, go through and do the check. Of course, for the beginning ones, they'll be pretty straightforward. And answer, we got 17. You should be able to simplify one side and get the number on the other side. So we got 17 and 2 negatives make a positive. 17 plus 4 is 21. Basically, we're doing this process backwards. And of course, if we get the same number, that's how we know. That's how we know we have the correct answer. We got different numbers. We would erase this, go back here, try to find a mistake, and then get a different number, and then check it again. Okay? So if it's different, you redo. Okay? If it has to be different, you redo. And that's it. Go through. I know it's simple. It might seem like you're doing a lot of writing just to say the answer 17. It's all practice, so we can actually do things that are much more difficult. Okay? It's kind of like when you guys start driving. You've seen people drive. It looks really easy. The first time you get behind the wheel and start driving in an empty parking lot, it's going to feel real weird, and you're going to be scared, and you're just going like 5 miles an hour straight. Okay? You have to get good at doing that before you can get on the freeway and do all the big stuff and know all the moving parts and how things go. Okay? So that's kind of what this is like. It might seem and look very easy, but if you learn how to do it right from the beginning, when you start getting to the bigger stuff and start getting on freeways, you're not going to be unprepared and like so confused on what to do. Okay. So let's do a few more. Oh yeah, let's do some of fractions just so we're not worried about that. So remember, with fractions, you have a calculator that does fractions. We practiced that yesterday, right? So fractions are from elementary school. You never want to say out loud for the rest of your life saying, I couldn't do it because there's a fraction. It's too hard because of elementary school math. You have a calculator that does all the work for you. So you never have to worry about not doing well in math because of common denominators anymore. You don't even have to show me the work on how you got the answer. All you need to do is type it in correctly, hit enter, and there's the answer for you. You just have to know what to type in. That's what the learning and the thinking is about. So like right here, if you're not sure how to begin, ask yourself, how would you do it without denominator? So what if there was no fractions? What if the question was just x minus 1 equals negative 3? What would you do to solve this one? What would be the first step? Yeah, you'd add 1 to both sides. This is negative 1, you would add 1. It's the same thing over here. Instead of adding 1, you're adding 1/4. So you see how the algebra is not different. Okay? It's a negative 1, we added 1. It's a negative 1/4, we add 1/4. It's not more difficult. It's not harder. It doesn't take more time. It's the same, right? Because you're just worrying about what to do on both sides, the algebra. And you're not even worried about, okay, what's the next step? Because that you could just put in the calculator. Okay, negative 1/4 plus 1/4 is 0, just like every other problem. Bring down the equal sign, and then if you're not sure about fractions in elementary school, this is where you just type it into your calculator and hit enter, and you get the answer. And you'll never miss it. You'll never get it wrong. You don't have to show the word for it. You just have to type it in right. So check it. Just let's practice one time. You know if you can do this in your head. Type in negative 3/4 plus 1/4, and see what you get. And you should feel a great alleviation of burden, that you no longer ever have to worry about missing any math problem because of multiplying, adding, decimals, fractions, negative, positive numbers. You'll never get a math problem wrong ever again because of that. You get it wrong is because you maybe added instead of subtracted to both sides. Something like that, some algebra mistake, but not because of this. All right, so what do we get for the answer? Negative 1/2. Okay. And of course, if you can get the answer without the calculator, that's fine too. And then go through and check. All right, so let's go do that. So we're going to have negative 1/2. I'm just plugging in for my x right there. Minus 1/4 equals, does it equal basically negative 3/4? And you can type that in the calculator, or you can do that in your head. And you might be able to say, okay, that's negative 2/4 minus 1/4. And then negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. If you can do that quicker than it takes you to punch it in the calculator, you can just do that. If that's like, how'd you get negative 2/4? Just put in the calculator and you won't have this step at all. It'll just say negative 3/4 when you hit enter, and then you know it's the right answer because it matches the other side. So, hopefully that gives you a nice sense of security that, yeah, this is algebra is something different. It's not about can you add, subtract, multiply, divide, all types of numbers. It's do you know the steps to get the answer? Can you do things in the right order and not skip something? Okay. Very similar to solving puzzles and jigsaw puzzles. You just have a certain way of doing it that works often. You just have to keep doing it. Okay, so that's the front. Again, if you're not sure how to begin, if you don't know if you should add 22/15 or if you should be subtracting 1/3, that's what the algebra part is. That's what you're trying to learn. What do I add, subtract to both sides? How do I know which one it is? And if you're ever not sure, usually just by taking off the denominators. If I did this, what would you do first? You'd probably subtract 1. So then you go back to the real one and say, okay, so if I was going to subtract 1 here, I should probably subtract 1/3 here. And it really lets you, it really lets you know what you should be doing in order to solve, the fraction problems. They're not more difficult, they're just, more numbers. Now, I expect you guys to be able to finish the front checks and algebra and answers, of course, today. And then tomorrow, you should be able to, we'll finish the back. You can see I threw in some decimals and all that stuff. But you want to get used to looking at this and saying, well, that's not more difficult because I can just use a calculator. So I can just subtract, 68 hundredths on both sides. Okay, and put negative 2.92 minus 0.68, and I'll get my answer. And I'm not worrying about, did I carry right, did I borrow right, did I do, never miss another problem ever again because of that stuff. So the ones on the back aren't more difficult, but I did want you to have some with decimals just so you got familiar with them, okay? And of course, double signs, definitely take care of those first. So if you have something with 2 signs, there's only a few of them, but like here, definitely rewrite it first. Don't jump into step 2. Take the time just to rewrite it because you care about accuracy, not getting done real fast and then getting things wrong, okay? It's like a mechanic putting back your car together and saying, well, I put it together, and then you try to turn the key and it doesn't work. You're in such a big hurry to go really fast, and you didn't want to do that last step, and then the thing doesn't run. What do? Take it all apart again. What do you do in the math? You have to erase it all and start all over again because you're in such a big hurry the first time. So, yeah, it's worth the extra second and a half to rewrite it just for that one part so you make sure it's positive. Got to subtract 5/4. and you get this right. Because if you look right here and say, oh, it's negative, and then you start adding 5/4, that's when things go wrong. So slow down, do it right the first time so you don't have to redo it over and over and over, and it'll generally work out. So that's a double sign. Two negatives make a positive. Same thing for like these. If they have a positive and negative, a positive negative makes a negative. So if you have two different signs, make sure you make it a negative. That way you know to do the opposite, which is add 0.5 to both sides. Okay. And if you're just good at watching your signs, that's the algebra. That's all you have to worry about. Calculator does all the calculations. You don't have to worry about any of that. Okay. All right, so I'll leave you with that. You have, let's see, it's 12:18. We got a good amount of time, about 25 minutes. So you should be able to finish the front with the checks and then move on to the back. If you're absent yesterday or you didn't show me homework number 1 yesterday, then give that to me. You show it to me if you have a stamp on already. If you don't have a stamp on it, then you need to get that. Notice in the upper right-hand corner of this homework, there's a number 2. That's how you can distinguish which homework it is. Like, oh, you need to show me number 2 or number 5. It's always in the upper corner, and you know which one I'm talking about. Okay? All right, other than that, go to it.